Your hydrogen model makes money for 10 years. In year 11, the support ends and the margin disappears. So here is the uncomfortable question. Did the project ever pencil, or did the policy just hide the loss? That is the decision in this episode. Not which hydrogen color sounds cleanest, not which country announces the largest headline number. For a specific pathway, buyer, and location, does the project clear its contracted price after the rules are applied? And does it survive if support arrives late, is cut in half, or expires? There are 4 possible answers. Advance, when the project works before support, or remains financeable after a material haircut. Redesign or relocate, when support can close the gap, but only after changing the power supply, carbon intensity, capture system, delivery route, or buyer. Wait, when the economics could work, but eligibility, certification, timing, stacking, or an award is unresolved. And stop, when the project fails a load-bearing rule or remains structurally uncompetitive even with support. My answer upfront is simple. No hydrogen color wins globally. Policy can reverse the local ranking, but a headline incentive is not a bankable cash flow. Start before policy. Take the buyer's contracted price, subtract the delivered pre-support cost of hydrogen. That is the pre-support margin. Then add only the policy value the project can actually realize, not the advertised maximum, not the auction ceiling, not a buyer-side carbon cost presented as producer cash. The full model needs a qualification decision, eligible production or property, monetization, compliance cost, support term, and start date. Then run 2 more cases, cut realized support in half, and move the clock beyond expiry. For orientation, earliest source lock pathway, work used roughly $1.50 to $2.50 per kilogram for unabated gas-based hydrogen, $4.30 to $6 for a Western United States PEM renewable electrolysis case, and about $2 to $3.50 for gas plus capture. Those are illustrative ranges from different source years and boundaries. They are not current spot quotes, and they are not comparable until plant gate, delivery, currency year, utilization, and life cycle boundary are aligned. A recent geological hydrogen model ranged from about $2.46 to $6.82 per kilogram as scale and decline assumptions changed. That is a model range, not an operating field receipt. Nuclear hydrogen gets no universal cost dot at all. Its control is the value of the reactor megawatt hour that the electrolyzer consumes. The map therefore uses ranges and scenario boxes, not false precision points. Now add policy, and keep 4 labels separate throughout this episode: law, rule, selected bid, and target. They are not synonyms. The United States has the largest visible production credit arrow in this comparison. It also has some of the hardest gates. Section 45(v) uses 4 life cycle emissions bands. Qualified hydrogen can be no higher than 4 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram. The highest band is strictly below 0.45, not at or below it. For hydrogen produced in 2026, the published base amounts are about 13.1 cents, 16.4 cents, 21.9 cents, and 65.6 cents per kilogram. When the applicable increased credit conditions are met, those amounts can be 5 times larger, about 65.5 cents, 82 cents, $1, and 9.5 cents, and a maximum of $3.28. That maximum is not the base case. It is a 2026 tax year amount attached to the best carbon intensity band and every applicable condition. Electricity attributes, life cycle modeling, third-party verification, and labor treatment determine what the project can claim. And the law now requires a qualifying facility to begin construction before January 1st, 2028. That turns schedule into economics. A project can have a compelling steady-state model and still miss the window because permitting, interconnection, financing, equipment, or offtake takes too long. Captured fossil hydrogen adds another boundary question. The rule is not that 45V and 45Q can never coexist anywhere on one industrial site. 45V is barred when the qualified hydrogen facility includes capture equipment for which 45Q has been allowed. Separately owned or co-located power equipment can be treated differently. The actual facility boundary and prior claims control. For the post-July 4th, 2025 non-direct air capture 45Q branch, the statutory base amount is $17 per metric ton for tax years beginning in 2025 or 2026. It can become 5 times that, $85, when the increased credit conditions are met. Inflation begins after 2026. That is still not $85 per ton for every blue hydrogen plant. To express 45 Q per kilogram of hydrogen, multiply the applicable dollars per ton by verified tons captured and securely stored per kilogram. Then preserve the credit period, storage route, ownership, monetization, and recapture risk. California's low-carbon fuel standard is a separate optional overlay for qualifying transportation pathways. Its realized value depends on certified carbon intensity and credit market assumptions. It does not belong in the national default. The United States decision is therefore not green gets $3 and blue gets $85. It is which facility qualifies when, on what measured boundary, for how many years, and after what haircut. Canada uses a different denominator. The Clean Hydrogen Investment Tax Credit is a percentage of eligible capital cost, not a production payment per kilogram. The regular rates are 40% below 0.75 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram of hydrogen, 25% from 0.75 to below 2, 15% from 2 to below 4, and 0 at 4 or above. For eligible property available for use in 2034, those rates are cut in half. The credit ends after 2034. Eligible property, labor requirements, project plans, and other statutory conditions still matter. Expected carbon intensity is validated before operation. Actual performance then matters during compliance. A project sitting barely inside a tier should model the lower tier and possible recovery, not book the forecast rate as certain cash. To compare Canada with a production credit, first apply the percentage only to eligible capital. Then convert that capital benefit into an annual value across finance production. Show the utilization, useful life, financing term, and kilograms underneath the answer. A 40% capital credit and $3.28 per kilogram are not competing headline bars. For Canada, the decision may be to improve carbon intensity headroom, change the eligible equipment package, or reschedule before the 2034 phase down. The model should show which one actually changes the buyer price. Europe is where careless stacking creates the biggest illusion. Renewable hydrogen-seeking RFNBO treatment must satisfy detailed electricity sourcing rules, including additionality and geographic and temporal correlation. Monthly temporal matching moves toward hourly matching from 2030, subject to the regulation's transitions and exceptions. That is a classification and eligibility route. It is not itself a cash payment. Non-renewable hydrogen has a separate low-carbon methodology under the 2025 delegated regulation. That methodology accounts for life cycle factors including upstream methane, capture, and electricity treatment. Again, methodology, not subsidy. The European Hydrogen Bank auction is the cash support mechanism in this group. The IF25 auction has a €1.3 billion budget and includes both renewable and electrolytic low-carbon topics. The Commission now lists 13 projects invited into grant agreement preparation, 9 initially selected, plus 4 additions from the reserve list. Cloudberry in Finland carries a selected bid of 44 euro cents per kilogram. Put the label on screen, selected bid. The public page does not disclose Cloudberry's pre-support levelized cost, and at this source freeze it lists the project in grant agreement preparation, not as a signed grant or an operating payment receipt. 44 cents therefore cannot prove the project's supported margin, and it cannot be transferred to another project. Then there is CBAM. The definitive regime began on January 1, 2026, and hydrogen is covered. The new 50-ton de minimis threshold does not apply to hydrogen or electricity, but CBAM is principally an import carbon cost and market access mechanism. It does not send a fixed check to a clean hydrogen producer. Any advantage depends on embedded emissions. The European emissions allowance price, carbon price already paid abroad, product classification, the buyer's alternative, and who captures the avoided cost. So the European underwriting sequence is: choose the classification route, establish eligibility, use an auction premium only when selected and contracted, and model CBAM on the buyer and import side. Adding all 4 mechanisms into one European subsidy number is a category error. China should not be forced into a Western per kilogram tax credit template. The recommended energy industry standard DL/T3015 took effect on June 18, 2026. It provides a clean and low-carbon hydrogen evaluation framework. It is not a national law, and it is not a national per kilogram production credit. Until the full standard text and certification uptake are source-locked, this episode does not publish classification thresholds. The 2026 Integrated Hydrogen Pilot is more directly economic, but still not a national hydrogen check. The program is designed to select 5 city clusters for 4-year demonstrations. Central rewards are performance-based, capped at 1.6 billion renminbi per cluster, and generally calculated at 80,000 renminbi per verified point. Those rewards depend on cluster selection, qualifying applications, verified downstream use, and anti-double-dipping rules. The same notice sets a 2030 target for average terminal hydrogen prices below 25 renminbi per kilogram, with roughly 15 sought in resource-advantaged regions. Put the label on screen, target. That is not today's observed price, not an ex-plant cost, and not a guaranteed subsidy receipt. The China decision is therefore about regional equipment cost, infrastructure, integrated demand, and verified program performance. A project should advance on those industrial economics or wait for selection and evidence, not assume an invented national production credit. Now pause on what the public projects actually disclose. Cloudberry gives us a selected bid and volume, but not pre-support cost. 9 Mile Point gives us an operating technical anchor, but not a commercial merchant model. Kuka gives us design scale and a captive refinery buyer, but public electricity and output figures do not share one clean boundary. Air Products. Edmonton has dated scope and support announcements, but not approved Clean Hydrogen ITC tier or operating margin. We did not find one public project with a complete, coherent package of pre-support cost, lifecycle-carbon-intensity, realized support, contracted buyer price, support duration, and post-cliff economics. That missing package is not a reason to invent the numbers, it is an underwriting finding. So, let us make the analysis explicit with one illustrative case. Take a 100 megawatt renewable electrolysis screen. Delivered cost is $5.03 per kilogram. The contracted buyer price is $4.50. Before policy, the margin is negative 53 cents. Now assume the measured carbon intensity is below 0.45. Every 45V condition is met. 90% of the maximum 2026 amount is monetized, and compliance costs 10 cents per kilogram. Realized policy value is $2.85. The full support margin becomes positive $2.32. Cut that realized value in half. The margin is still positive 90 cents. Then move beyond the 10-year production credit period. The margin returns to negative 53 cents. That is not a project forecast. Every number is editable. It is a classification test. The verdict is policy dependent, not policy resilient. The finance work is to lower power and delivery cost, raise the durable buyer price, shorten the exposed financing period, or redesign before calling it advance. Now rescore every pathway the same 3 ways. First, the best eligible case. Turn support on only after every qualification switch is satisfied. Second, the finance case. Apply the buyer contract, commissioning delay, monetization friction, compliance cost, and a 50% support haircut. Third, the cliff. Set expiring production or auction support to 0. Respect the Canadian capital credit schedule. Keep only durable operating economics and buyer value. This is where the pathways separate. Renewable electrolysis can move from stop to advance when cheap power, high utilization, low measured carbon intensity, and a firm buyer align. If the case depends on barely clearing a matching or carbon threshold, redesign it. Captured fossil hydrogen can work when gas, capture, methane leakage, transport, storage, verification, and support all share one auditable boundary. If one boundary changes between the carbon score and the money model, stop. Pyrolysis must survive without unlimited carbon product revenue. Geological hydrogen stays in wait until flow. Purity, decline, and delivery are demonstrated. Nuclear hydrogen must beat the electricity contract displaced by the electrolyzer, including after support expires. The workbook does not pretend a qualification probability is precise. It exposes whether the status is confirmed, likely, unresolved, or failed. Then, it produces one of the 4 decisions. Advance, positive before support, or still positive, after the haircut and cliff with comfortable eligibility headroom. Redesign or relocate, positive under full support, but vulnerable to carbon intensity, siting, delivery, offtake, or expiry. Wait, potentially positive, but an award, certification, deadline, stacking route, or buyer is unresolved. Stop. Failed eligibility or a negative full support case. Use the workbook with a real project. Enter the pathway, location, commissioning date, deliver pre-support cost, lifecycle carbon intensity, buyer price, contract term, support instrument, qualification status, financing tenor, and post-support case. Keep every policy, in its native unit before converting it. A production credit stays dollars per kilogram. A capital credit stays a percentage of eligible property until annualized. An auction bid stays a selected bid until contracted. A border cost stays on the importer side. A target stays a target. Then, ask which single input flips the verdict. What would change my mind on a policy-dependent project? One consistent package showing pre-support cost, lifecycle-carbon-intensity, qualification method, realized support, support duration, delivered buyer price, contracted volume, and economics after expiry. Until that exists, the maximum incentive is not the project. Return to the opening model. If the margin disappears in year 11, the answer is not necessarily stop. It may be redesign the power supply, relocate, renegotiate the buyer contract, shorten the financing exposure, or wait for a rule to close. But the loss belongs in the model today. Policy can move hydrogen across the finish line. It cannot fix the wrong power price, the wrong gas and capture system, the wrong buyer, or a project that arrives after the window closes. The best hydrogen policy does not make every project win. It makes the right project prove why it should. We judge technologies, projects, and economics, never securities. Nothing here is investment advice.